Call to order the Lowell City Council regular meeting Tuesday, February 7th. At 7:01. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Stratus,
Present.
Councilor Weathers, here, Councilor Murray.
Here. Okay, all present. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody see any changes they need to the agenda? Want to add something in, take something away, move it around? Okay. Be public comments. I don't see public. I don't believe. Oh, first item is new business. With no council comment. Okay. First item is new business on page 3 of the packet presentation from Santa Pac. Mr. Connell, you want to introduce this?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. In October of 22, I contacted Santa Pac to restart conversations with them on our franchise agreement. They've been operating in the city without a franchise agreement since about 2019, 2018, I believe it is. We have worked out a draft contract, which is in your agenda. We have representatives of Santa Pac here tonight to speak to you. And what I'm hoping to get out of this conversation is some feedback from the council on what you'd like to see in a final draft of an agreement. And we'll work that out and bring that back to you in March for a first reading, second reading, and then a final vote for approval. We have Chris Kjar and Aaron Donnelly with Santa Pac tonight. Aaron, you're welcome to join us at the table. We've got a couple seats here. And I'll turn it over to you. And I'll go ahead and pull up this material so we can look at it.
All right, thanks for having me, Mayor and Council and staff. My name's Aaron Donnelly. I'm the Senior Council Manager, Sales Manager for Santa Pac. I've been there 15 years. I work with all the cities that we partner with. Springfield, Eugene, Benita, Criswell, and the surrounding areas. So, Santa Pac has been servicing Lowell for a long time. Previously, there was another company here called Star Garbage, which we purchased. He was essentially retiring, so we purchased Star Garbage. It was 14. I can't remember the exact year, but so at that point, then we became essentially the exclusive hauler in the area. And we provide regular trash and recycling services. And for a lot of the other cities, we provide the opportunity to recycle after requirements. Lowell, because of its population and distance from Portland, has had limited requirements for state law on opportunity to recycle. Being that as it may, though, we still provide most and probably all of the requirements you would ever need as far as education and outreach. We provide newsletters in our quarterly bills with all of the education and outreach information. We also provide curbside recycling for all residents and commercial businesses. And then, we provide education and outreach as needed if someone calls us up. So, when Jeremy called me, we were started talking. I was like, okay, well, let me dig into, one of the primary things that happens when you get into a franchise agreement is there's a number of benefits to the city. One is that you have primaries, that you have stable, long-term, essentially you're always going to have the service for health and human safety, not have garbage piling up and vector issues and stuff like that. So it provides a certain reliability and dependability throughout the city to have that service. In Oregon, every city except residentially, every city except Florence, in my understanding, and the city of Eugene are franchised with hauler. They essentially sign contracts and the hauler hauls services the whole city. Even in Eugene, it's rate regulated and it's word regulated entity. So So that's kind of the standard in Washington, all along the West Coast, that's basically how garbage collection works. It's seen as it's like a pseudo utility and the city enters into a contract agreement with the hauler to provide that. So in return, the hauler, typically there'll be a franchise fee, for the exclusivity rights and also to fund back into the city, towards goals the city may have for sustainability, outreach or whatever you might want to do. And the contract that we wrote up is a 5% franchise fee. So on all revenue that we would receive from customers in the city, we would essentially pay back the city a 5% franchise fee. And that's pretty standard, 5% number. And it would also provide some additional free city services. City Hall could be a no charge service. And the contract talks about 3 roll-off boxes per year donated for the citywide cleanup event. And also free service for the Blackberry Jam Festival. And then honestly, I usually just do whatever someone wants. So but it's not written, but if Jeremy called and needed something, we just step up and take care of it is sort of how we operate. So the big question then, in regards to Lowell is, another main sort of pillar of the franchise system is that you establish very set rates that are equal across the board for all residents. And so that's not the way that it exists right now in Lowell. So because of the history of Lowell and that there hasn't been a single franchise hauler, and we bought Star Garbage who had different rates than we did. I think if you look in the, let's see, go to the second services. So this is sort of the major task and probably the point of discussion. You scroll down, Jeremy. Okay, so the most common residential service people have is a 35-gallon trash can picked up once a week. That's what that S35G1W1. You can see there on the left, though that is a rate that quantity one customer in Lowell paid. And as you go down, you can see the quantities that each of them pays. So you can see the level of stratification on that rate structure as it exists currently in Lowell for the same service, essentially.
We didn't get that information in our packet, did we?
No.
So what I did was I was like, okay, well, how am I going to establish a standard rate? So I took, if you scroll up a little bit, and that sort of stratification of the rates is common across all the services, which are on the left there, summary of services. Now these are just codes, but essentially the top one is 35-gallon every other week, which is the GEO. Additional 35-gallon trash can, 35-gallon once a week, 65-gallon once a week, 95-gallon once a week, as it goes down. You get into the commercial size dumpster, which is an F1Y1, which that means 1 cubic yard once a month. Next one is 1 cubic yard every other week, 2 cubic yards every other week. So just for example, in volume, like a subway might generate 3 cubic yards a week, something like that. Schools might generate 6 to 9 cubic yards a week. But the average house is about 35 gallons. So what I did was I took the average and did all the multiplications on the quantities and the dollar amounts, and I said, here's the average customer pays. Then I took the most common rate just to say, okay, how much of the variance is the most common from the average? So if you scroll down, you'll see, go down during, keep going. You see that number 40 there? So that is the most common one. It's $26.04 right now. There's 40 of them. If you scroll back up, you can see the average. So the most common is 26.40 on that 35G1. Okay, so the average is 26.19. The most common is 26.04. So I wanted just to see where we were at. So the average is a little higher than the common. So in proposing the rates, if you go to the first tab, essentially what I did is I took the current Lowell averages and said these are the current Lowell averages. Typically every year when it comes to rate adjustment time for garbage, we apply CPI. We use the it's called the Western BC CPI, which means medium and small size cities. So it's what we end up using for the other cities we service, Springfield, Crestwell, we use that CPI. That CPI this year was abnormally high. So I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's 8.2%. Actually, it's 8.15%. Jeremy, I noticed that it had changed since we discussed this slightly. So I sent you that probably around 4 or 5 o'clock today. I was like, oh, actually, it's a little bit more, but 8.15%. So if you apply the average, you add on the CPI that we would be applying in the area, typically effective July 1. Actually, I have to see, it might be March 1.
Do you do this, excuse me, do you do the CPI same period as your fiscal year, or are you looking at, or do you just go to the calendar CPI, do you apply that the next July then?
I want to say it's July, but I think in here it might say March. And there are reasons for that. One of them is that the landfill set is a big driver of our costs, and they change their rate usually July 1. But I believe in this contract, as we have it written right now, it's a March 1st. Because that allows us to get the, okay, so it's on, you guys get a copy of the draft interest.
It's March 1st.
Yeah, so what that does is, for example, the CPI for 2022, so we get a full year, it just came out. I think we get it released like the second week of February. That allows us time then to come back to the city and say, this is what it was last year, and then vote to approve or deny for a March 1st implementation. So that's why we provided the March 1st date. It would be annually, it would be just once a year, kind of essentially request for the CPI. So that's what we're looking at for this year. So I take the average, I apply the CPI from last year, which is something that we would do to this year's rate, regardless of franchisee or not. And then we would add on the 5% proposed franchise fee. And that column G is our proposed rates at this time for the city council. So that's just sort of a bunch of thoughts and logic that I had and where we came up with these rates. Happy to answer any questions and talk about it further on how much detail.
So that 79 56 for like the 95 gallon car, I was compared to Mount Vernon. So that's a 3 low.
We pay for even the bills, but this is per month.
This is pretty
Okay.
So
I think I'm gonna, I don't know what size I get actually.
That's a big card. Yeah, that's most people. don't-
isn't that the, yeah, that's
65?
So pretty. So do you have a blue recycle card?
Yeah.
That's a 95 gallon.
Somehow I should with that.
That's what I have.
So the big blue recycle is a 95. There's a 65 and a 35 down from that. So
I have the range.
So this would be a new month.
no, but he just means the same size.
Yeah.
yeah, they're green. The trash cans are green. The
Start
recycle
going
cans
to
are
the Stephen point, whether we.
But this is a monthly rate.
That's a big jump.
Some people, so that's the thing, if you go back to the services screen. You scroll down and you look at, by taking this logic and keep going down to the 35 gallon. There we go, okay. So if you take this logic, we end up with a rate of 29.76 for 35 gallons a week. You can see some customers will see a significant jump. Some customers will see a significant or smaller just decrease. As you continue to scroll down, and you're going to pass the point where those people at the bottom there will see a decrease. The people at the top will see an increase.
Jeremy, can you go scooch over to, oh wait, not that one, it's 35 gallon, where's the, so that's just the rates, do you have the quantity, was the quantities by type of service up there? No,
The only quantity is the example of the 35 gallons.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, that's a column.
so you didn't run anything about what the average or normal, most recurring size of customer we have here?
I did, it was 35 gallon. That's why I included it. So.
That just surprises me though, because I don't pass any of them, and I live in a very,
Street, almost everybody has.
yeah, I don't see 35 gallon.
Or 60.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, I bet you it's 90-10 for what I see, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was in their full numbers. That's what I've seen throughout the industry is, and in the other cities, 35 gallons is most common. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
There's
I never
none
understood
less
how
than
I got
95 on my street. It's a small street.
Yeah, and I don't have.
I mean, not one.
Well, that's what they gave me.
So to go back to something you said earlier about coming back every year. Not that we wouldn't love to see you, but if I'm reading this right, we would only see you if the cost would be more than 7.25.
No, I mean, the way that's written is that it is it's up to 7.25. Essentially, it's passed through. Above that, we would need to request and get your approval for anything above that. So you're setting a ceiling. Without your approval of fire.
So we don't get to do any minimization of this current one, because that's gonna be the 8.15 can be applied before we start.
Yeah, before you start. 8.2 is the highest that I've seen. Yeah, I've been there for 15 years. It is normally, usually I go into cities and it's like 2.3, 2.5, 3.2. Yeah, it's high.
I mean, what I'm seeing here is my. I mean, as a person, but I'm not, that's, I compare numbers to here, what I'm seeing is a 250% increase, like garbage rates in this bill. Franchise agreement.
Some people will see a significant increase with
That's what I need.
the nature of the way the rates are separated. But yes, I mean, I don't have a better answer than that. It's just, that's just the way we've got to figure out a way to make them.
My concern is for seniors that don't have any clue that this is coming and their service isn't gonna change, it's not gonna improve, it's not gonna get worse. And yet it's gonna double. And I worry for people that can't afford that.
You know, yeah, I mean,
Mine's gonna work in double. But that's not that great.
most people can doubt, I don't say this, but a lot of times seniors will get delivered a can, or someone will get delivered a can initially start. And then they may not be using that full can the whole time. They're just never changed to the smaller can potentially. That's, now, not everybody can do that.
No, but I was gonna say, I called, and I have a huge can that I don't fill every week. And I called once, and she told me if I switched, it would be more money.
Yes.
And so that's why I kept this huge can. So I'm paying, I mean, it's 121 right now. Every 3 months. I don't know what
As
it's
they
gonna
said,
do.
we switch to a smaller can if we want
Me
like.
too.
That's what she said.
Well, that means that you got a good deal on your larger can, which is not equal to what we're charging currently for all our cans across.
So what's gonna
I
happen?
have a 90% recycle line.
It will go up and maybe now, it would assume, you call if you want a smaller can, then they probably get it right sized and things are very.
Oh, I can see
But I think I've been in the 30s.
No, this is the.
If you're trying to downsize to a smaller can like that, you could do that initially because of your
This
issue.
is going to.
Like, I know, like,
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me.
it is, it's weird logic.
Didn't
That
know
was
his grandfather in our life.
That was doing that very.
Yeah, no, that was-
Last year.
Probably should have said you're getting a good deal.
Yeah, we had no last year.
Change.
Yeah, well, see, I
That-
mean,
There's something wrong with that. Cable or a connection to TV.
I don't think so.
I think it is pretty big on some.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So I'm,
So whether we enact the new franchise agreement or not, the rates are gonna change.
Correct.
I was gonna say that, I mean, whether we take the franchise or not, it's not gonna change back and stop. Or at least there's.
Whenever we whatever number of years ago, we started working on this, we had a good relationship. I don't know who the fellow was, I don't believe it was you that was down here. With Sanipac. And what ended up being was, they had a package. We took it, we gave it to our attorneys. We gave it back to their attorneys. And gave it back to our attorneys, and they went back like that at least 3 or 4 times. And then I think we ended up being concerned about the termination thing, the 10 years after you gave notices. And so it never came to the council. It just died. you know, it just stopped being passed back and forth. So everybody came to us to do anything. You're still paying us the 5% franchise fee that you're collecting, correct? I see that.
That's not,
Huh?
they're not paying any franchise fee.
They're not?
No,
Okay.
we don't have a franchise with them.
Oh, I thought I
You
just.
see it on your bill,
I thought I'd seen it in the budget, would have been paid.
you
Not-
detail it out, then, or do you just include it in the rate?
It depends, some cities detail it, some cities include it, and the numbers I put in there,
To that point, Mayor, there was franchise revenue budgeted with the goal of negotiating an agreement and getting something in place.
Okay,
It was
so-
budgeted but not being received.
Okay, so we haven't been receiving the 5%.
Correct.
With why we've been outside the contract, okay. Then,
I must admit, I'm a little concerned about the perception of, the constituents, especially the people, I mean, obviously the people that see their bill go down aren't gonna perceive it this way, but the people that see their bills go up. And then part of the negotiated agreement is the city gets free garbage, the city gets 5%, the city gets garbage cans for the blackberry jam. We get stuff for the community, which maybe that's more of a win for everybody, but not necessarily that people perceive it that way. That people are gonna perceive this as almost a buyout of the city for the agreement. These rates for some citizens are gonna be very significant. And then 5% of that, because we negotiated this agreement, is going to the city, and that's not going to make constituents happy.
And it's directly paid for by the,
By the customers, not by Santa.
or.
So in a perception thing from, I would say, I'm guessing 50% or more of the citizens are not going to be happy, and the perception is going to be that the city was bought off by the free garbage for the blackberry jam, the city hall, and the 5% franchise agreement. That's a statement that I think that's just how it is, and I think people are gonna perceive it that way. And I'm concerned about that. Some of these bills are like, 200 to 250% increase all at once. Vastly dwarfs the 8% inflation, 8 to 11% inflation rate we're seeing nationwide, and consumer goods costs going up. It dwarfs that. It's a pretty incredible ride, and I have concern about
Jeremy, have you, either you or calculated what a year's worth of franchise fee is estimated based on those?
Yes,
used to be a pretty good number.
on your agenda item sheets. Under budget impact, it said estimated franchise fee revenues of $6,500 to $7,000 annually.
So knowing that these rates are gonna go up, whether we have a franchise or not. If we haven't already pre-spent that money, could we look into creating a assistance program for our lowest income residents,
What funds?
the franchise fees?
We don't have any franchise.
No,
If we do this to help with the perception, acknowledging that these rates are gonna go up whether we do this or not. Could we then turn around and, after having the franchise, commit at least some of those fees to creating an assistance program?
I don't see why not.
it. So we keep saying the rates are gonna go up whether we've got a franchise agreement or not. So can we roll up the $9.61 bill for that individual who's paying $9.61? So we're saying the rates are gonna go up, but are they gonna go up to $29.76 without the franchise agreement? Are they gonna go up the 8.3%? For that
Probably
individual?
go to 8.3.
So that individual bill is gonna probably be looking at another $1 on their bill.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be $10.91, if we don't do a franchise agreement, whereas that individual is gonna be paying $30 a month if we do a franchise agreement.
Yeah, I mean, someone paying $10 a month, it could be a case by case where we look at it and say, if you would call them and say, we've got to essentially right size and, the rate essentially on a case by case basis, but overall, you're correct, like. It'll be a bigger jump for some if we do a flat rate, then, yeah, I get that.
So when you guys do these franchise agreements, do you generally see some customers, in services with you guys and start when the county down?
Yeah, some people self-haul, I mean. Like, for example, I was just looking at Springfield's numbers, we service 96% of households, so 4%. There's some people that will self-haul.
We have an issue with people dumping in the woods, of course, I'm closer to those surrounded by forests. So
That would.
that's a big concern
Yeah.
for. Jacking up too much.
Yeah, I mean, there are some cities that, it's not actually uncommon to do a mandatory required service. That being said, if you're looking for an unpopular thing,
Yeah,
you have to stay away from, you know. So,
do it.
Is there any possibility of doing a stepped-in approach for, if you look at, since most of the customers, the jump is gonna be very modest, but for those outliers, bake in a stepped-in multi-year process, so it's not just this sudden massive multi-100% increase?
yeah, I think we'd be open to discussing. You know, this is honestly an anomaly. This is a weird situation, so I think we're open to discussing what makes sense, so. We want to make sure people,
I mean, at least that way people could prepare and.
Yeah.
Smaller bowl.
In such a small number of customers.
yeah, it could be,
Relatively,
I mean, that's just the 35 gallon, there are others. Every service level has the same spectrum split. Yeah, so, like for one thing, I was thinking about like the schools, we've always given, historically, the schools pay less. But I wouldn't want to necessarily change their rates until they had time to budget it for next year, so. I think we would have to have it make sense to where essentially our revenue was kept essentially whole or in that way, and but maybe there is a way to achieve both of those things, to stagger.
Well, because we might not have to do it with everybody, just maybe those that are. Gonna have a significant.
Well, but you know, I mean, dealing on the operations side of this thing, you gotta have some kind of consistency to.
Ultimately,
To write a software program that's not gonna go, oh, it's Aunt Mabel, we're gonna charge her 30.
well, I think from a code standpoint, I'm not sure that you can allows a franchise hauler to charge one person less, you know. without-
Gotcha, well, that's true.
But I think we could probably brainstorm something.
The 65. So,
Here,
so the far left is the proposed rate,
Far right.
I meant right.
Yes.
I. Um,
How does someone have a $9.91,
we have
you know, fee? What services, what can do they have, or?
They have a 35 gallon one
I
suite,
know, 'cause
and
that's
I don't know.
grandfather.
They probably came in from Star.
My guess is that they came in from Star, and honestly, that's potentially an issue as to what was happening. You know, sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
with a smaller hauler, they're not keeping as. So I think we just kind of just accepted those and just let them ride, and that's probably what that came from.
Same thing goes with EPUD and Lane Electric here, the EPUD customers that got moved, swapped over to,
That's their rates.
yeah.
Now, as far as like a low income or assistance, does EPUD or does somebody else have a program like that that would be something that we could piggyback onto? Because they already have a sort of.
We have a water assistance program within the city of Lowell to provide assistance to households below. I don't remember what the percent of the poverty level is, but we do that within the city. We do that.
That's financed by the city, but Lane Electric has their own program, but it's a
Right,
A little different.
bit more bureaucratic and not local.
but if there's already a mechanism in place, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and have Santa Pac essentially manage asking for income, or we don't want to get involved necessarily with that. Potentially, there's a way to piggyback on something.
In terms of just saying, like, if you are approved for the city water.
Essentially,
assistance, we can
if you
approve
cleared this bar, then you're this, you can show evidence that you're this. then
yeah, that could. that could possibly factor into the franchise fees that you remit to us. Maybe you could withhold a certain amount to credit customers' accounts.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good initial discussion and we're not going anywhere and things aren't essentially gonna change with it, right now, so. I think we're open to whatever makes sense for you guys. You wanna be here.
So
for a
when
long
are
term
these
like
rates going up?
that. I should check, Chris is on, actually, I've been kind of ignoring my.
He's there.
Yeah, so Chris is the general manager of Santa Pac. So maybe, I'm not sure what we have planned as far as the date for the price increase, Chris, on this.
We were talking, if we get into the agreement, the March 1st. Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Okay, I can kind of hear myself in feedback. I just want to make sure. I believe it was on the March 1st, we were kind of working through the agreement on this for the price increase and the franchise fee to go in if everyone agreed upon to it correctly. Isn't that right, Aaron?
Yeah, I just can't remember, like, if nothing happens here. We're going to apply a CPI. Do we plan on implementing that? March, July, I can't remember when that was exactly.
I think it was March 1st we talked about. And by the way, my name is Chris. I am new to Santa Pac. I was just waiting for Aaron to kind of introduce me, and no harm, no foul. I wasn't able to be there tonight, but I apologize. Next time I'll be there in person. But it's very nice to meet everybody over Zoom, and all the conversations, really, really good. I understand the concept of the people that were paying less. The rates, seem going up pretty drastic. At the same point with the constituents is, someone's been getting a great deal for many, many years, and other people haven't been getting that great deal. So standardizing the pricing, I think, is pretty important to go forward and have a fair rate for all the residents. But I do the idea with the franchise fee, maybe, subsidizing some of those people that you choose to do that with. That's an outside the box thinking idea. So I like it. And like Aaron said, we're willing to work with any ideas that you have and continue the relationship and hopefully move forward to a franchise agreement at some point.
Thanks, Chris. He's been Santa Pac for a couple months now. He's in a hotel room tonight, so that's why.
Yeah, I don't my house doesn't have a weird light in the corner. Sorry about all that.
Sounds like you might be due to work too.
He's from Texas.
No change.
Would it be more appealing instead of doing a franchise fee to just straight convert the 5% into an assistance fund? And just forego even the appearance of the city is receiving some sort of remuneration for negotiating a contract that causes maybe those bills to go up.
But remember,
Would that be handled by Santa
Rates are
Pac,
going up.
what you're saying, or by the city?
I don't know.
For the city to handle it, we'd have to have the franchise fee. Because otherwise we'd be just taking it out of the general fund.
yeah, we don't have the money.
Okay,
And,
just a question.
we get Lane Electric as a franchise fee. And
I mean, part of the problem is some of us were grandfathered in. I always was, and so now the real fees are coming.
Lane Electric has a franchise fee.
What's that?
and yes, every public utility that operates in the city pays a franchise fee. And 5% is on the low end of that.
But not exclusive. Utilities don't pay exclusive.
I don't believe we have any that operate under an exclusive franchise.
The exclusive generally pays a higher franchise fee than the non-exclusive.
Yeah, so both city, charter and Ma Bell, I don't know what you call it. I don't even know what it is now. Quest, whatever.
That's
they're
really
now. Both have options, both have franchise agreements, but they're not exclusive. franchise. And Douglas Vast that will be entering that as well.
When they remit to us franchise fee, that's good.
For use of the right of way.
So here, the main concern that I'm hearing is the jump for people, it's a striking jump that have been grandfathered. So if there's a solution for that, that's a hurdle that we need to figure out.
I wasn't grandfathered in, like I said, I'm looking for 250 this.
And I think there are, as Gail said, a lot of people who are just using their can the way they are, and probably half of them are, half utilized. There might be an opportunity there to mitigate that rate by putting people to a lower rate, but the fact that the lowest rate up there is not much different than my 95.
I was just gonna say, that's all it's been doing for me is keep.
And I don't know how
the
many
rate
are
I
that's-
pay now.
Yeah,
Well,
so you know how that, because that's what
it'll still be 10.
The lowest rate is every other week, 35 now, which would be $18.43.
when people share a can, can residents that share a can as long as it goes through one person to? I mean, I don't suppose you can police that.
I don't think you can police it. I don't think it's common. I think most people want to do that for whatever reason, but.
I got a lot of families that live in
Yeah,
close proximity.
I mean,
It's not against your rules.
not that I'm aware of, I can't imagine.
As long as you're not overflowing the garbage.
Yeah, I mean,
You're really offering, they're really, it's on a unit basis, it's not on a customer
Yeah,
basis. So.
but some people have.
I mean, some people in like mobile home parks or condo associations, they have shared containers. So that's a similar example. They get one bill.
So I think these might be some opportunities for you guys in your quarterly letter for educational opportunities. For offering people further ways to, so downsizing to the right sizing, the garbage service. Sharing, I mean, would it be more cost effective?
Yeah, I mean, if I've got a 85-year-old, guy next door that has a little sack of garbage, give it to me.
I didn't see the other, every other week.
It's EO.
It's at the very top of the first cell.
I'm just curious because that's another way if people wanted to keep their big can,
Right.
they could lower their price by doing it every other week. So there's options.
I definitely think sending out the message that, here's ways that we see, and I think it'd be helpful if you guys send that message out.
Yeah.
Because,
Due to our unique situation with
Yeah.
that over time that it's gotten out of whack, here's a way to.
I think messaging is going to be important on this, if this is gonna work for everybody.
Well, and one of the things we do need to communicate is that it's kind of getting righted now and, we're still kind of feeling the effects of Star garbage being purchased and we're now hitting that point, kind of the same way with Lane Co-op, with Lane Electric, our fees have been grandfathered in and over time, at least mine have been, increased based on what EPA was doing, and it's kind of confusing, but it's the same kind of thing. And so if we message to the community, look, this looks very unusual but really help them understand that things are getting righted now from that. Because we didn't have the same back out before Star. No, we didn't have it at all. Star was our only option.
Well, no, we had Apex and there was another one out of.
Oh, see, I wasn't even aware of them, but the point is, we didn't have this consistency with Snowpack at that time, so now it's kind of coming up to that point, plus inflation. We're feeling that on every level, so.
I'm not sure for oil.
But seriously, the messaging is gonna be really important to educate them why it's changing so drastically all at once.
And give them options. They need to have their options.
Well, and the options, I can see a couple ways I could go to keep mine basically the same.
Right.
A little bit higher, but basically the same, so, we tell people how to do that.
exactly.
I mean, once in a while I fill that can if I do a lot of yard work or something, but.
Every time I watch one of those order shows.
My point is, I mean, you know, once in a while I really like that, otherwise I'm not filling that thing up by ourselves.
There is a psychological element to it that does encourage people to recycle if they have a limited size can they're aware of. If you have an unlimited size huge can,
Yeah,
somehow inside you don't.
it's true.
So potentially, is your can, do you have the right size can for what you need? And are you maximizing the recycling potential?
Well, I was gonna say, another thing I would like to see, and maybe I just haven't paid enough attention personally, is just make sure we're really reiterating what we can recycle.
Yeah,
It's in the newsletter every time.
yeah, but that would be a part of the outreach for sure.
Remember.
Make sure you're
remind people.
maximizing that.
Now, is the recycle and the garbage all in one price?
It's all included.
Yeah, so if we downsized on the,
You still get the same recycle rates.
yeah, but
Downside
do you get the
garbage.
smaller can for recycle
No.
too, or doesn't matter?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's raised on $100.
So. Yeah, I think we just need to message it right, and. If we can find any way to step people and so forth and so on.
So potential, I mean, I mean, speak for Charlie, but what I'm hearing is potentially you're interested in a kind of a step graduated potential option. Potentially education for sure. And is there any kind of relief for people that need relief in that way? Those three things are kind of takeaways that I'm hearing.
I think it's a challenge regardless, because the rates are going up. It's
Yeah.
just, that's just what's happening. It doesn't matter.
I'm curious though, we've had 1 year in the last several decades that was kind of negative growth rate. And you weren't here, but I'll bet you it's gonna happen again next year.
Yeah.
Will you, I've noticed the language in the contract says we'll increase it by the CPA. It doesn't say we will adjust it.
I've never seen a rate roll back. I've never seen the CPI go down if it happened. I mean, in the contract right now, it says it has to remain stable.
It says in 7.3 that it will never go down.
Right.
What's that? Oh, that is,
Section
yeah,
7.3.
but it has, and
Never
we're in a weird time, because when it went down before was recession.
No, I'm not saying the CPI, I'm saying that the rate will
Yeah.
not go down regardless.
If there's a negative CPI, the rate.
Because this is such an anomaly going from, 2 to 5 to 8 in the last 3 years, and
I think you can see here actually, you got a negative.
that was like 2008-9
Yeah.
recession. With the,
And then I can say like during first year recovery, we didn't go for price increases. We knew that was really impacting people at the time. I think we want to be sensitive and work with the cities we serve. That's my goal, and that's our goal. So.
I just think, in the overall, the whole economy, the problem with this is, it's the beauty of compound interest, but it works against you if it never truly adjusts, if it's like PERS, a guaranteed, regardless, that's long range, sometimes that's not affordable, because you're stacking, that's why I like different ways to handle oddities like this. It's a good start though. Been happy with my stand back service.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's happy?
Mr. Mayor, it sounds to me like there is interest among the council of entering into a franchise agreement with some changes to accommodate or reflect what Aaron summarized. Is that fair?
I would say that's fair.
In that case, I will work with Aaron and other Santa representatives to work out those details and bring that to you at your February 21st meeting, with the goal of holding a first reading approval on March 7th second reading approval and second reading and final approval on March 21st. Is that acceptable to the council?
Let's start with that.
Yeah.
The rate increases will go in effect March 1st. So,
The CPI.
so I'd like to see our actions be after this increase. Not before. Because kind of like you say, the perception is that it wouldn't have gone up if we hadn't had an agreement. You know, that's what it's gonna look like to the public, you know, that we made an agreement and caused all their prices to go up. So I'd like to have it happen the other order. That way I don't get phone calls.
Machiavelli said, if you're gonna do something bad, do it all at once.
Yeah, it's like Doc and a puppy's tail.
It wasn't something bad. It was kill all your enemies.
What?
Whatever it was.
Well, we don't have enemies here, so we're lucky.
I'm happy to, I'll give you guys some current, any other questions.
Kind of, as you get this put together and you give it to the city administrator, maybe he can pass that on down to us and get our input and get it back to you, so that when we come back together and we talk with you, that we're closer to being on the same page of what you're proposing and what we're asking for. That way, so we can filter it through him and you filter it through him, and that way we can move this thing along a little bit better, hopefully.
Very good.
Jeremy, what I'd also like to see is some thoughts on what we're going to do with the assistance program, if we go this route. I'd like to see how that works out. I mean, I can't remember exactly what we're at in numbers for the water assistance. But I'd like to see some numbers on what you think maybe, and as a starting point of what we look at. You know, we're looking at $6,500 a year. Maybe look at how many people are in the water assistance program already right now. We'll probably have similar numbers of folks applying for that. That's what we go with. That's the standard we go for to be eligible for this. I think that probably be a pretty good starting point. And kind of divide that up. I personally think that the citizens of Lowell could use the $6,500. They can get more than the city could use $6,500. I would like to see all that money dispersed into an assistance program.
I like your idea, but how come I'm not getting cut? You know, my 10 neighbors got one, and I want my cut. And so. That's all I'm saying is that.
If that's the way we go, then we just don't accept a 5% franchise, you know.
Then everybody's goes up, it goes up anyway. Then we don't charge the 5% to everybody. And we need to charge that because they're crossing city property lines, access lines. But I would, I don't know if it'd be better to have the ones that are paying really low, to have a graduated like $3 in 6 months, $3 in 6 months, $3 in 6 months, like that, to bring them up to versus one big impact. I don't know if that's possible. It you know, if it's something more gradual, it gets them to the same point where everybody else is. That might be more something easier to swallow than and I don't know how you work that out.
Yeah, I'd have to get with my bean counters to figure out the math.
Because like you said, a 250% increase, bam, all at once. That's a lot, you know. You tell someone, I realize I don't know how many dollars that you can say that, but like the $9 going to $20 to $30 basically, you know, that's a pretty big shock. And so it's about, I think it's like 28 on the lower end that was paying on the lower amount to somehow to what he said. For those 28 that looked like that was on the chart, if I read it right, if we use some of that franchise money to offset some of that, or to offset that. I don't want to do it for everybody in the whole town, but for those 28, and I believe on the water thing that we do, that's now covered by Lane County, if I remember right. Didn't they come in and aren't they sponsoring that program now?
That's an additional benefit. It operates a little differently, but that is a different benefit.
Yeah, the Lane County have that, but so for those 28, I don't know if you have to draft a different letter to them saying, you
They
know.
may not even be garbage customers, they may not even be Sanipack customers, they might be at such a low, so we don't know.
Well, and you don't know that every one of them need
Yeah,
assistance.
No, he means the ones on assistance.
Oh.
That are already
Oh,
on
gotcha.
assistance, so it may not be 28, you know,
That may not be a one.
Topic, but so I live in Crestwell and my wife is not anyway. But she's on the board of Crestwell First. It's a community group and the city council provides funding to them to distribute as a means of distributing to people in need in the city. I don't know if there's anything specific like that here.
No.
Yeah, because the 6,500 comes in at the end of the year, right? Or maybe semi-annual. You don't do it on day one of the contract.
No, it would be.
front loading.
So whatever we do, it's gonna come out of the general fund, or else we're gonna run that front end of the whole, I don't think we really do that. But, so it's gonna come out of the general fund to some degree, and then it'll be reimbursed.
But I'll bet you a lot of people don't know we have Rattlesnake Transfer Station over here, so
Yeah.
part of the communication, I'll bet you half of the. I'm sure half of the new people don't know this exists.
Yeah.
And that's another option.
Yeah. People use it.
I use it all the time.
I just don't see people down in the woods.
Yeah, we all agree on that.
And I'd say there's another date, but I can't remember. I can't find it right now.
Okay, good
So it's
start.
very nice to meet you. I know it's a good- I think it's a good start. I'm like trying to wrap my brain around how to even talk about this, but I think that we've got a good start. I think we all probably want the same thing, so we can get there. Confident of that.
Work with Jeremy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chris.
thank you. I'll meet y'all in person soon.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thanks for coming out.
Next up on page 15 is the resolution 797 adopting city priorities. Mr. Cottle, please. On what page was it? 15.
Mr. Mayor, resolution 797 has all of the projects that the council identified at the January 21st work session. I've organized them by must have, should have, and could have, and I've ranked them in priority order. As I promised I would at the conclusion of the work session, and I presented the resolution here tonight for council's consideration and my recommended approval.
Thing is, we went through that really quickly, and all of a sudden now it's hard to set down. I just wonder if when people look at this, that there might be something that they would like to have in the must have. That's not in the must have. Or is everybody satisfied with what we have? on here? I don't know.
Well, I would say so because we went through it, I think, did it pretty thoroughly, and I don't think we're ever going to please every person in town as far as what they think should be the top priority, and some of their views on that, their perspective, not putting them down or anything, but they don't have sometimes all the facts, you know, and they'll pick something that really isn't as urgent as what we might know to be. So I'm not trying to eliminate their thoughts. Don't misunderstand me, please.
And
But I think we have to start.
we're limited in what we can do anyway, so it's not like we can add 4 or 5 more of these.
Well, that's
It'd
what I
almost be a swap in, swap out, and we did that in the exercise, so.
I think we did the work.
The only thing that surprised me that the personnel policy was so high up there. What's your recollection that it hasn't been updated since when?
Forever. It's like 20 years or something like, it's completely out of.
It's been a good, at least 15 years.
Yeah.
Cause I thought, I'll have to look, I was looking for something else and I thought it was in 2015. That the personnel policy was.
No. We tried to. And we made steps towards generating a new personnel policy, but we never got to first base. We just thought it was a great idea. And it's
Oh.
there.
Warren Weathers was mayor whenever that was approved.
Any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 797, resolution adopting city council priorities for. 2023. Second.
Motion by Gail, second by Jimmy. To approve resolution 797, a resolution adopting city council priorities for 2023. Discussion. And did you ever find the big picture frame thing of the old resolutions that we had or old objectives? It's over. Okay, so you don't have to buy the frame. So we just have to print out the sheet and get it all sized to fit in there. So that'll save a few dollars. But I think this should be somewhere at City Hall. Maybe the
Conference room?
conference room would be fine. You know, someplace where people gather and sit, have time to look at the wall.
Well, mostly for us, when we're getting yet another thing from, we can look to the list and say, where does it go? You know, either reshuffle or
I was gonna
we
say.
stick to the priorities.
it becomes a super-
And there can, but there can be modifications if something comes up that we didn't
Yeah,
contemplate. That's the conversation Jeremy and I had, because, you know, you don't want to have it be, nope, we can't take advantage of this wonderful opportunity, because by gosh, you know, it's not on there. That would be silly.
It gives us a solid set of goals to accomplish. But if it has to adjust.
It gives it direction what to work on, what the budget. for.
Helps them do the budget.
Yes, yes, okay.
Other comments? Okay, let's see, all those in favor of resolution 797, resolution adopting city council priorities for 2023, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next up on page 29, Lake County multi-jurisdictional mitigation. Mr. Cottle.
This is an excellent time to talk about should have number 12.
It's way too low for down there. I don't think we.
All right.
I don't even want to
Moving
get
along. We had an emergency management meeting on Thursday. The county's going to meet with us at the conference room. They're doing it by region. So we'll have Oak Ridge, we'll have Westford up here, and we're going to start working on our city annex. And I want to get some input from you tonight. It doesn't have to be very detailed. Just some ideas that I can start plugging in there on identifying hazard types that are that the community could face, and some thoughts on how often they occur and how severe they are.
Anybody want to throw one out? I've got some. Water contamination.
From what?
Sabotage.
I was thinking, rail spill. Yeah, water contamination.
Rail spill. Yeah. Water shortage. From our tanks.
Landslides.
Sewer plant for failure.
What's that? Sewer plant. Okay.
Okay.
Dam failure or damage. hazardous waste spill. We got somebody, you know, you see all these trucks going through town, you know, like they had, Ohio or whatever, just had a rail thing all blow up and all this, then we have. Whether it's on this side of the lake, that side of the lake, but if one of those, went boom, you know, then, you know, where the winds are and everything,
We had that happen many years ago.
yeah, back up that way.
And it was a concern because of it blowing over the. We got, we
There is
didn't
a,
get evacuated, did we?
When did that occur?
there was a winning class action lawsuit in that.
Yeah, oh my goodness, Jeremy, it was
Who was held?
nineties.
I believe at the time, I can't remember that.
They derailed up there and there was a spill.
What was the company?
It was, I believe at the time it was Union Pacific,
Union Pacific.
but it might have still been Southern, I don't know if they.
Yeah.
Merged, then,
Yeah.
Okay, that-
I can't remember if they evacuated the school just because, I mean, they sent kids home, I can't remember, you know, I think they did, I think that's what I'm thinking is. Suddenly I was in town or something and my kids were coming home from school.
okay, that history is good to know.
Because they just wanted to be cautious. They didn't know what we were gonna face yet, so. Didn't turn out to be cancer.
Okay. Nope, haven't mentioned that yet.
Yep.
And then
And we
well,
did.
fire and smoke.
Which we did.
Earthquake,
I figured other people wanted that, but I wanted to add windstorm, because sometimes, you know, it's not just a regular storm, it's just these freakish winds come in. I mean, I can have something come in and it will turn over. You know, something right there and right over here, not touched. It's
Yeah.
just bizarre.
Well, that's an issue like with last summer when they had to do the preventative shut-offs for the electric.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, which we're gonna face now because that's what they do.
sabotage.
Because of the lawsuit.
Sabotage.
Yeah, yeah,
Sabotage, yes, that's a increasing concern.
well, and we're near the core and they are concerned about that on a regular basis, so we could be more susceptible than the average town because of that. Sit right on these-
With the way they're talking with power plants up here, power plants down, like you're saying, it's, you can do it from the highway and keep on rolling.
Snowfall, I mean.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I was thinking about things that
Snow
occurred
and ice.
a few years ago when we had the snow and then we had the atmospheric river come through and we had Fall Creek flood. I know that's Fall Creek, but
We were challenged at all of us.
yeah, we were challenged.
Yeah.
But that snow, I mean, city was without, were you
8,
there?
9 days.
Oh,
no.
Yeah, we were
8 or 9
without.
days.
well,
It was
my
3
electricity
three
was
full
about 3
days. We were up without power in town. And up to about 2 weeks for some
Oh,
places.
outside the
yeah.
city, it's almost 2 weeks, but,
Thousands of trees.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean. My house, when I'm without electricity, I'm freezing in no time. I mean, I basically, it's pretty hard to stay there, can't cook, can't.
And we took people in because we've got oil lamps through the whole house
Yeah,
now and stuff.
yeah.
so.
But I don't know that we couldn't have. I mean, there were some good things that happened, people pitched in, but we didn't have any formal plans, like we didn't have a plan for a warming center. We didn't have, I mean, we had people out with their tractors plowing our streets. So just, I don't know.
And
There could be a lot
the,
with that.
and we did have a warming center.
Yes,
but
we
I
did,
didn't know about it until
It's here.
the second or third day.
right.
And I was busy with my shovel digging out my neighbors, so.
But my
Before I
point
ever
is
found
we
out
didn't
about it,
have-
so with the communication type network, I think is important.
And we didn't have formal plans.
No.
Like I said, I mean, people pitched in and took
Right.
care of each other and, so that's always there, but we didn't have formal plans for that kind of situation. So,
And that's something that we should have a basic plan just between the school here, the fire department, the we'll be doing this, we'll be doing that, we'll be doing
Exactly.
this, and this is how we're gonna work
Yeah.
dovetail together, so there should be a working plan.
The community could be educated on what they
Right,
have
yeah.
available to them should something occur. That's maybe would be my point. It was kind of a learning lesson. I would say.
I don't think
I
we
went to
can
the Ashes
ignore,
where they had a-
ignore, disease. You know, other possible pandemic or something like that.
Anything else there?
And there's other things we can include. I mean, there's been, you know, always a possibility of a tornado, but I think it's pretty minimal. I don't know if it's worth mentioning.
Oh, the lands,
But
you
it-
mentioned.
In my opinion, I think we've seen it be more on the west coast than historically, but you know, on the scale of possibility, it's pretty.
The Raymond's parking lot. in college,
Harlow Road. So. I mean,
No, I think earthquake is a big deal. We've got the cascade.
Well, and the communications is a huge issue because, you know, I'm on AT&T tower and so it's cheap and we didn't have phones. And luckily I had a landline and so I was able to get out, but our, you know, the EOC, huh? At the Snowmageddon,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, so that was,
we call it snow.
I had telephone service. Cause my family thought, you know, I mean, they weren't sure.
I hate to even mention this, and it's really a sad state of our political state today, but I think insurrection and political unrest and possible civil war are an issue that is a possibility in the United States today. So,
I'm glad I know because
Yeah. it's that.
You have enough to go with?
So I'll get me started.
At
And
least,
we thought of-
at least you'll have some,
Other
whatever it is.
disasters.
At least when I say, do you have anything, you don't have to say, like, I
Sorry.
don't have anything, so at least you have a few things that you can go back to.
resignation of the entire city council.
that wouldn't be a disaster. Resignation of the entire staff would be a disaster.
Either.
That would be a disaster.
I don't have to deal with that situation.
Everyone's like, don't say that out loud.
Well, I don't think anybody has that.
Yeah, let's move on to page 30. We have Paramount Ironworks. Oh, boy. Doing a trench drain. Mr. Cotton?
All right, so we redid this project. We obtained some quotes. We have a bid tabulation in there. Paramount Ironworks was the low bidder. We've secured approval from the property owner for them to do the work. The developer has prepaid the city $11,340 at this point. To get started, we would have to pay the difference of that, and I've requested reimbursement from the developer for those amounts. The contractor has provided their bid, they've signed the contract, and if this is approved tomorrow, I can get it signed and issue the notice to proceed.
So we're paying the $7,000 difference, the city? And then go
Up
back,
front to get
and then we'll go
started,
back to the developer for that 7,000. Is that the intention? Did I understand what you're saying?
that is my hope.
Okay.
I have notified them that they need to pay us the difference.
What was the bid range that we saw for this project?
Huge.
This on the bid tabulation, so the highest one was 64,000.
Yeah, I mean, what's the city? It's so amazingly different.
I saw that as, we don't want to do this.
Yes.
I've seen that with contractors, so, but,
No, I mean, I saw that as that company saying.
Oh,
"We
yeah.
don't want you to
Yeah,
stop."
yeah.
what does,
We've seen a couple of those in the
like I say, you're gonna dig a trench, throw some gravel in there, throw a pipe in there, throw some gravel in it, and close it up, you know. In my mind, it might be more than that. I agree.
$64,000.
I believe part of the explanation for that is I turned this over to the engineer so that There'll be no further arguments over the scope or scale of the project or procurement. He put in some contract language to cover our behind. And I believe that some of the contractors might have viewed that as being onerous, which went into the bids that they put in.
I have pictures.
That was my only real question, because this is so far out of my realm of competence, that the price difference between the low bid and the others is, in some of those fields, is pretty dramatic.
Well, what we see is we see contractors are like, we really don't want to do your job. We got plenty of work to do. But if you want to pay us enough, yeah, we'll put the other people off and do this if you're willing to pay our outlandish price, and that's how they make, good profits on a job. So my guess is there's a direct correlation between the busyness of these contractors, their upcoming schedule for the next 6 months, and the rate that they gave us, along with the negativity surrounding language in contracts.
I agree with what you said. I've seen that also.
I couldn't remember and I didn't look it up. What was the total with the donated rock and the price before? Wasn't it eight?
There's about $11,000 worth of the, was gonna be the, value of the rock, so that's about 11,000 we put in, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So the 11,000 was the bid from November with Riverbend. And then the value of their rock was probably 5 or 6 grand.
So pretty close to this number.
Close.
That's what I was wondering. I couldn't remember. So yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah. All right.
And everybody's in agreement to go with it, right?
Yes, the property owner has given her permission.
The permit, is they're gonna, the permit, process and everything, because this thing shows to be, gonna be done with like 60 days or whatever. It gives enough time for this. Are they gonna just use the plans that we submitted as their plans back to us to get a permit to dig in the ground, or is the
Correct.
permit even needed?
They'll have to get an excavation permit.
Uh-huh.
And I'll sign off on that. So,
Okay, it's the same one as what we've asked them to bid on, right?
correct.
Okay. Good. Any other questions? We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Paramount Ironworks in the amount of $18,500 for the construction of the trench drain, and authorize the city administrator to sign.
Should that be French drain?
It's a trench drain. It's a French drain, but the term we're using is trench drain.
French is what we're used to seeing. And
Pardon my French.
I'll second.
motion by Gail, second by Tim. To approve a contract with Paramount Iron Workers for an amount of $18,000 for the construction of a trench drain. Further discussion, questions? All those in favor of approving a contract with Paramount Iron Works in the amount of $18,500 for the construction of a trench drain and authorize the city administrator to sign, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. All the way down to
I'm just
page,
gonna make one comment.
okay,
I would hate to do another kind of work with these. This contract is so long, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Why is it for a hole with some gravel in it?
Yeah.
Like, wow, if we were really doing something with them.
Like I said, cover our butt.
10,000 pages. Sorry,
It's,
I'll be quiet now.
our legal system and our elected officials doing their job. And each one of them has a page.
I don't know.
On page 220, we have approve a library volunteer job description. Which Chicago.
I'm asking for your approval tonight of a job description for library volunteers. I've prepared this in collaboration with Library Director Peggy McCain.
What kind of background check do we do on these people, volunteers?
It's a criminal background.
For 11-year-old? For 11-year-old?
They gotta start somewhere, Don.
Yeah,
I mean, we're gonna have 11-year-old volunteers, so.
That's a good point. I'm not sure they do that on minors.
Yeah, mine under 18, I would,
I don't think they do.
But for the adults, they will. Should.
And the other thing that we run into in school all the time is they're only good for so many years, so you need to redo one just because somebody had one in a different district or whatever.
So do we, wherever the verbiage is for that, do we, because you normally don't do background checks on children, do we change the verbiage to say for adult applicants?
Under qualifications.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the language still works. It just says like
Right.
volunteers are subject to criminal background check. If you can't do one,
That makes
Yeah.
sense. As long as it works.
we try to cut the night.
Under
That policy.
Well, don't do that because they charge every time. you
Under
speak, so.
qualifications there. Might just background checks on adults. Non-minors, whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't intending to do minor background checks.
I think
It's not
it's
gonna happen, but it
Okay,
will be
as
possible.
long as we're all on the same page.
The biggest concern for me is just getting their parents to sign off on it.
I don't know, Jimmy, I think if you read this from a legal aspect, all library volunteers are subject to, that means it
That
will
makes-
be done. I think it should be all eligible library volunteers are subject to criminal background checks. I think there needs to be a little bit of change in the verbiage to represent folks that would be done, otherwise we're really not operating. to
What is
our
eligible
state.
mean?
Eligible would be whoever, an adult, if that's who background, if you can't run a background check on a juvenile, then they're not eligible.
What about volunteers 18 years of age and older
Yeah. they're-
are subject to criminal background
Yeah.
checks?
That would be fine too.
So are we gonna approve this as amended?
As amended.
I have two other.
Oh,
things.
we are jumping. Okay,
Under position duties and responsibilities, it says communicate cooperatively with library staff. Should that say library and student staff?
You know, I don't want any volunteers giving us any sass over at City Hall, so.
We don't want to do background checks.
Well, the understanding of how we got the thing is sometimes the city staff will be only.
And then the other one, under volunteer expectations, the dress code.
Yeah, I thought that was a little.
I mean, I don't think we should have one. Just in general, they're
Where is that?
under volunteer
The ones
expectations.
that have denim and the holes in the denim.
Dress appropriately.
Yeah,
Usually shockingly gendered, but
That's,
separate from that. I don't understand the carve out for denim. If we're gonna start carving out for denim, and then probably we should say something about leggings and then dresses. So I would like to cut the whole thing, but if we won't do that, maybe just end it dress appropriately.
Sure, that works.
That's pretty subjective.
well,
That's why I would get rid of the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that.
That's what I would like. There's two.
Free of rich, people pay good money for rich nowadays, Karen. Good money.
I know how to do this if you want to.
See,
You're the band.
I mean, I'd like to think that as long as people are operating within, any legal limits of dressing, in terms of verbiage on clothing or things like that, that we're more concerned with behavior and what they're doing, not what they're wearing.
My dress code, because I supervise in the library, is not about the appearance of your clothing, it's about the safety of your clothing. So, if you're gonna have a dress code, I'd like it to be about wearing the proper shoes to protect your toe, something like that.
I say that point, take it out. Because. Where do you go? You go on and on. I guess if we run into some bigger problems, we might have to revisit it.
I think that's one of those situations, right, so where we wait until we see if a problem occurs, we enter into a discussion. Then if we have to, change the rules at that time, we have discussion with that particular volunteer. And just say, hey, we're doing this for the benefit.
And speaking of that, is there something in the training that says about like, we talked about this earlier, it was in the policies, wasn't it, about it? That was for patrons. We have a system of KO and a patron, right? If they're disruptive.
right.
We don't have one for the volunteers.
It says in here that they're expected to follow the same rules and expectations of users.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's what I read. Policies, but
So are we in agreement to take the line out? Just take the line out on the dress code?
I don't have a problem with the first sentence, the first two words, dress appropriately. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, you know, that gets into like the safety to
well, it's like give ample notice, what's ample? You know,
I think
so.
dress
Well, it's okay to
appropriately
have-
is a pretty
It
brief
also-
statement. It doesn't exclude, it's not an exclusive.
And this leads to training, so that is the phrase that Peggy can use when meeting with volunteers to train. What does that mean in the context of this job? So,
Well,
and that's why I didn't like the rest about the denim.
Oh, yeah. it was
Getting really
specific.
specific about one
Somebody
thing.
has a little burr.
Yes, that's what I thought that was.
so,
I would have picked a
but
different
it
one.
also
just-
would be just enough to, if somebody was really a problem in how they were dressing it, it could. That you could use that to have the discussion, because you did ask for, okay, Jeremy, we just changed. Dress appropriate.
That's what we're here for.
Well, and like in the museum, we had more problem with people not bathing than wearing ripped clothes, you know, that was more disruptive than.
Or wearing too much cologne.
Which we do have in the overall library policy.
Yeah, it's both
Huh?
ways.
We do have that in the actual, the full library policy about odor and whether or not it's causing problems for other patrons. So,
Yeah, because even too much perfume can.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we've had
Both
people come
ways.
into the office over there and it takes 3 days to air it out.
Well, that, some people are truly sensitive and allergic to. Anyway, okay, so dress appropriate. That's fine.
Are you tracking what the changes we're making so we can just as amended without saying what the amendments are? Or do we need to state the amendment?
I'll state the amendments
Okay.
for the record. Under position duties and responsibilities, communicate cooperatively with library staff and city staff. Or rather, all other city staff. Under volunteer expectations, dress appropriately without the further language having to do with dress code. Under qualifications, all library volunteers 18 years of age or older are subject to criminal background checks. All other languages to remain the same.
That sounds good to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the library volunteer job description.
second,
Okay. Okay, motion by Gail, second by Jimmy. To approve the library volunteer job description. Should we say as amended or just leave it off
As amended.
as
Oh, I
amended?
forgot.
Okay. What I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Further discussion? Thoughts? Not saying any, all those in favor approval of a library volunteer job description as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Down 2 more pages. 223. We're on to agreement for Lane County. For city to sign. Okay,
I'm asking for your approval tonight of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with LCOG. This is to extend the term of our IGA related to technology services. Term will be extended through June 30. The budget would remain the same. We still have a remaining budget. So there's no increase in costs.
the way it sounds, are we looking at to go in with another service? For our IT services or just extending this one until the next one with Lane Council of Governments is re-entered or? Are we-
They are our IT service.
Okay.
This is specifically for the library and city hall project.
We're just gonna spend the rest of the money.
Right,
Okay,
they still have projects they need to wrap up.
okay. I didn't know if we were walking away from them, so. I
No,
didn't-
absolutely not. They've been a great partner.
Okay, I didn't. I did read the small print.
I move approval of agreement amendment number 1 with Alcog and authorize the city administrator to sign.
Okay, a motion by Maureen, second by Tim, to approve agreement amendment 1 with Lane Council of Governments. Further discussion, thoughts? Not hearing, not seeing. All those in favor of approve agreement amendment number 1 with Lane Council of Governments and authorize the city administrator to sign, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay. There you go, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, and I don't believe I explained it. I'll put all the background in the justification box, so I hope I clarified that.
Any other business by anybody? No community comments? Do we have anything before we adjourn? And we're adjourned at 8:20.